everyone, and thanks for joining us and for staying this long throughout the day. We know it's hot, and it's actually the summer solstice today, so no wonder it's hot in the longest day in the year. But thanks very much for our panelists for joining us. Just to get to your scene, so we have Simina Tulbure, who's the MP for diaspora within the Romanian Parliament. We have Clina Radulescu, who's the Vice Rector right here at SNSFA, so thanks for hosting us. We have Chair Chica Fire, who we've just heard from earlier as well, who's Deputy Head of Unit at DG Reform with the European Commission, and also Laura Flora, who's the Vice President of the Board of Romanian Business Leaders Foundation, and also the founder of Public Affairs as well. So we'll be jumping straight in. The panel is obviously focused on the experts and policymakers' perspectives on the subject of brain training. We do have one roving mic, I'm afraid, so I can keep this just for question and we'll move this one around. Frauke, we'll start off with some questions and then also, obviously, either of you feel free to jump in at any point on any questions whatsoever. So I think maybe starting with setting what the orientation of solutions for brain drain should be and what the kind of parameters of those solutions would be. Maybe Simina, could we start off with you? Could you maybe tell us what you think the focus of Romanian institutions particularly should be? So in particular between choosing between retaining existing talent, existing young graduates or in Romania, or trying to attract people who've already left, or prefer to make the option retraining and reskilling existing labor force, which no longer maybe has the skills to face the labor market.
First of all, thank you very much for having us. I'm Simina, I'm 31 years old, and I'm the first female representative for the diaspora constituency in the Romanian Parliament. I lived for 10 years abroad, so I studied in the UK, that's where I lived 6 years, and then I moved to Luxembourg for 4 years, where I worked for the European Parliament and the European Investment Bank. And one thing I can tell you for sure is that people don't really want to come back home, whether it's Romania, Poland, Italy, Spain. So I've met people from all around the world, both in the UK and in Luxembourg, and the life that the UK has offered at the time, since Brexit is a bit tougher, and the life that Luxembourg has to offer to its citizens, it's very hard to compare and contrast with the other countries, unless you're really homesick and then you still have family back home and you want to see your family, then that might draw you back home, but otherwise when it comes to the social, economical integration for the people, that's where when you know the hard work starts. So I think in this dialogue we have to talk about both about the brain drain and the brain waste, because we are getting more and more migrants in Romania at the moment. And I think one mistake the West has been doing, it was wasting the talents. So that we can take into account both the Romanian diaspora, but also the other types of diaspora from other countries. So there'll be people coming from other countries, like in the UK or in the Netherlands or Luxembourg, Belgium, and so forth, with a degree. And the authorities or the corporate world will not take into account the fact that they've already got a degree, so they would have to start over a lot of things because they would not have the equivalent degrees in the country. Also, when it comes to different domains, whether it's constructing or whether it's teaching, for example, I know for sure that people were really struggling in Luxembourg to teach, where you would have like 5k euros a month as a salary as a teacher. So you would have people in Luxembourg who would try to get into the teaching roles, but because of the equivalent degrees, they could not get in. So that I really wanted to mention that the brain waste, because Romania can learn from the other countries. But when it comes to authorities, now I would like to have two main categories. So we will have the adults and the youth. So when it comes to the adults, they would say, I'm not coming back home because the educational system in Romania is not going to offer what I want to offer to my kids. Secondly, it will be the health system, so the hospitals, and the way that you don't trust in the hospitals in Romania, and there's not enough doctors. Our doctors and nurses are in France or in the UK or in Spain and so forth. And then third is the infrastructure. So if I live in Bucharest and my family is in Satu Mare, how do I get to Satu Mare? Do I always have to take the flight there? There's a high risk of accidents on the streets here. We don't have enough highways, so the adults will have these answers. So when it comes to draw the Romanians back home, they will need to see these things first, and this is where the Romanian authorities will have to work a bit harder, let's say, and just being diplomatic here, but really it's a lot more effort. So now I'm going to concentrate just a bit, just 1 minute, so I don't want to be the only one talking in here. But the youth, they see things differently. So a lot of us, and especially the Gen Zs, they haven't lived in communism times, nor did I. So the trauma that our parents or grandparents had from the communism times, we don't have it. So when it comes to living in a country, you want to take into account other things. So, for example, the right to abortion. That's why I have a legislative project in the Romanian Parliament, for example, where I want to give accessible rights to women to choose on their body, because in the Romanian hospitals, even though it's legal, we can't have an abortion because the doctors will refuse this based on religion thoughts. So now, someone like me, or someone even younger than me, will come and say, do I want to live in a country where the right to abortion is not really accessible, or the far-right extreme party does not respect my rights as a whole? So I think these are the main two things. So what do adults think? So the people who already have had quite some experience abroad and they've had several jobs, and then the youth, when they want to come back home, what does the country offer me? Do I have access to opportunities? Do we have, I don't know, youth centers, for example, or like when it comes to career employment opportunities, what does the country offer me so I can get in? If I have a degree abroad, do I want to get back home? I know for sure that answer because I lived abroad and I definitely didn't want to come back home because the UK has offered me already enough, or Luxembourg. So I know the answer to these questions, and I tried my best in the Romanian Parliament to have them in the legislation. So I did legislative efforts, but this is a collective effort, this is a mentality effort, and I want to talk to you about the outward mindset, and I think Romania still has a bit more work when it comes to open mentalities, but we can talk more about what we can do in order to draw not just the Romanians, but other talents from abroad, because as you know, Romanians will have a lot of competencies, a lot of language skills. So we speak multiple languages. It's not that we can't talk to other people who are not Romanians. So I'm sure that there is several issues that we can touch upon in order to draw the talent in Romania, and especially making sure that we don't have brainwaves like the Western world already did.
That makes plenty of sense, absolutely. And then could I actually narrow in just on your point about the recognition of qualifications and accreditations kind of across borders, and particularly in Romania. So maybe Tina and Laura, do you think you could comment on how business and respectively universities see foreign, for example, foreign accreditations or university qualifications, where you've had young people leave Romania, go study abroad, and then try to come back in Romania to either continue studying or continue working, and how are those degrees seen? Is there a large degree of equivalence, or do we have significant steps still to go through for both universities and employers?
Ina said almost everything.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So I fully agree with what you said. I will start from there. In Romanian Business Leaders, we have a program which is called Repatriate. Okay, and this is a huge program, and you most probably know about it. And in Repatriate for 7-8 years, we have been around the world trying to convince Romanians to come back home, and they don't want to come home, most of them. And first of all, they make a life for themselves there. I mean, you can't, just rip them off and convince them to come back. but they can contribute to Romania, nevertheless, even if they are not coming back. Then, when it comes to people leaving Romania, now that's another story, because indeed we came to the same conclusion. Romania has to be attractive to people, and that's not about salaries, it's not about deductions or exceptions from taxation, so on and so forth. It's about the quality of life. And quality of life starts with education, with healthcare, although in Romania healthcare arguably could be better than in other places, because we don't have to wait for 1 year to get an MRA or whatever. But also infrastructure, so on and so forth. And it's also this constant noise. We have constant noise, a constant scandal, which, you know, everything is, you know, it's muddying the waters, okay? It's not clear, is it good or it isn't good? In fact, we are doing, because I'm, you know, I'm that age, I went through communism, so I know, yeah. I'm sorry to say about myself. But, so I've seen it all, and I promise you, it's so much better, okay? I mean, it's very good. We have a good life. All of us, we have a good life here. Opportunities, business opportunities are so much higher than in other parts of the world. But all this, you know, noise, all this fuss, all this, you know, we are people who are, you know, we are doing well, but we like to complain, okay? So we constantly complain about something. I mean, something is wrong, yeah? We have, I know, the traffic is bad, whatever, yeah? They didn't sweep the roads quick enough after the storm, so on and so forth. I mean, we like to complain. So this is about, you know, to your point, it's indeed, it's a collective effort that we must do Romania to be attractive to people. In Romanian business leaders, we have our credo. We are a business organization which is completely different from any other business organizations, because we don't support the interests of our members. This is not our credo. We are not interested about this, or we are, but not so much. Our credo is to build Romania in which future generations want to live. This is it. It is written. This is what we are doing, and we don't expect anybody to do anything for us. We are doing it ourselves. We are helping communities in countrysides. We teach young entrepreneurs and even students like you to go in entrepreneurship. We help small businesses to scale up, to scale out. We do loads of programs in education. We have Super Teach, which is a mammoth program which addresses tens of thousands of teachers to change their mindset. Yeah, and it's been going on for many years. We have Merito. Merito is a program which praises teachers for doing great things for children. So we do a lot of things ourselves. What business could do, we are doing in Point, in my firm. So my firm is 16 years this year. We've been doing reskilling and upskilling. I mean, this is what we're doing constantly. Reskilling, upskilling. Well, I'm in a business where I can't, you know, it's difficult to get, I'm in lobbying, so where could I get lobbyists, yeah? So we, apart from other things, okay, but this is the thing which affects, you know, it's a buzzword. So we have constantly programs of upskilling our colleagues. And it's not only in my business. I mean, every business I know does this. From multinationals, if you're looking at, I will give you this example, if you're looking at the retailers, the big retailers, multinationals, they are the largest employers, yeah, in the country. And they upskill all the time. They have been eliminating the cash, how do you say? Cash registers, but they are not, you know, they are not sacking people. They are upskilling people, and they move and do or reskill and do something else in the company. They constantly hire. How could we manage to bring people home again by, I don't know, we need PR.
So actually, just on the point of reskilling and upskilling, which you mentioned, I was wondering, Shika, whether you could tell us a bit more. I know you wrote recently about programs, for example, like Italy's provincial centres for adult education, which are aimed exactly at upskilling. Could you tell us a bit more maybe about how the European Commission's technical support instrument could support exactly that kind of programs, and if they'd be suitable for Romania, as Laura was saying, and complement business?
Yes, thank you for the question. I already mentioned actually in my presentation some examples of projects, so I will not maybe repeat them overall, but I will tell you one thing, that from my perspective, business and government intervention are complementary, and they are both needed, because without this type of partnership, we cannot actually succeed. If you look at the business, if you look at the government employment at a broader scale, you will see that government employment represents at EU level around 17% of all the employments existing. So it's clear that government intervention is not enough. I mean, yes, you have a scale because you are the decision maker and you are the one who proposes the program for reforms. But this doesn't mean that the private sector, and I'm very happy to hear about all these initiatives that were just mentioned, it doesn't mean that the private sector should just wait for government's intervention, and it's not the case, and I'm happy to hear that. Now again, I wouldn't, coming back to your first question, the fact that should we invest more in upskilling, reskilling, or should we invest more in attracting back diaspora? I wouldn't necessarily see it as a type of question of either or, because I think that given the current context that we spoke about extensively in the previous presentations, where we saw this range of population aging, and the fact that we have to boost the workforce, we actually should do both at the same time. So we should go into upskilling, reskilling, both by private sector interventions, but also by government. And when I'm saying government, it's both national, but also is in particular regional and local, looking at those regions which are hardly hit by those issues. But also thinking about some strategies indeed, how to attract back the youth. And from this perspective, I totally agree with you. I'm let's say, thinking about myself, what would make me come back in the country after 15 years spent in abroad. And indeed, you start with the quality of the public services. If I have decent healthcare conditions, do I have decent education and care conditions for my children, access to good schools, access to good infrastructure in terms of even the simple things like road or train transportation or things like that, that can make our life miserable or happy, as we know. So very simple things, quality of life, the quality of food, the care that you feel that also the sense of community and the care that you feel from your community and from not necessarily from the government, but this sense of community, I think it makes a big difference. And then of course you look at the other part of the same coin and the other side of the coin, and you would expect to have decent working opportunities, decent wages, obviously. Even if taxation is not on the first place, I would say that you look at that as well if you want to start up a business, obviously. So all this business environment and opportunities to create, to innovate, to develop an idea, to put it to fruition, I think it makes a huge difference. And this is what would make me, or maybe other people, consider returning home.
Brilliant. And just because it seems like a kind of recurring theme is the fact that the programs in many instances are there, particularly from the private sector, governmental initiatives and so on, and it's more an issue of convincing people who either haven't left yet or have left and may be looking at returning, convincing them that they are there, kind of an advertising problem, if you will. So I was wondering, Karina, if you could tell us a bit about what you feel the role of universities is in advertising this potential of staying in the country after you're finished, especially if you've gone to a Romanian university. I'm particularly thinking because I recently saw that FABIS, for example, the university, takes an active bias towards trying to convince people to stay in the country after finishing. They present to them opportunities within their courses, opportunities for employment. They argue that you won't find things that you can find here in Romania abroad, that you might feel alone abroad, and so on. So they take quite a preemptive approach to trying to convince people not to leave the country. Do you think that's the solution?
Yeah. I don't think I want to stay in line with their approach in a way. Because as Erasmus institutional coordinator, we are applying each year to get funding to send more and more students abroad, of course. And this is also our marketplace, let's say, because implementing the Erasmus programs in the university can be a challenge when you have millions of euros to spend. And the big challenge is to, convince students that an international mobility will give them added value for their, CV, for their access to the labor market, and so on. So I'm not sure that is the university place to have such campaigns in order to, convince students that they should stay here. Fortunately, our students are coming back because they want to take other mobilities. Now the Erasmus program is really giving them more and more opportunities. You can have different types of mobility during your bachelor studies, your master's studies, and also the doctoral stage if you want to pursue that. So when they take that Erasmus mobilities, usually they get added value for their CVs, and they want to come back and to be more involved in our community, not only at academic level, of course, but also in the labor market. So I think the place for universities to prepare students to take such international experiences and to support them whether they choose to stay there or to come back. Even if they stay there, they can still, be part of the academic community and help the university and the country in a general way of speaking, because of their research that are doing there, because of their, if they have different working places, they can do something that can benefit for their home country. So I'm not sure, I'm still a bit agnostic in this sense. I'm not, I don't want that a university should do anything and everything to keep the students here.
That makes sense. And I was actually just wondering on the question of private business and specifically the founding of new businesses. I think we see a lot of Romanians leave the country even though they have kind of entrepreneurial spirit and they like to contribute to Romania, but they leave the country because they think it's easier for them to found their business abroad. They have a lot more support from governments to do so. They have a lot more incubators, accelerators for their startups outside of Romania, places like the UK, Germany, France, and so on. And they see them far more as tech hubs. And I was wondering, Laura, whether you could comment on what can be done to improve that reputation and kind of rehabilitate Romania's position on that. Obviously, we've had a few kind of successful companies founded recently, but still nowhere near kind of Romania.
I disagree.
Excellent. Even better.
I don't have data, okay? I can't support what I'm saying with data because I don't have it. But what I can say is that the entrepreneurial ecosystem has grown a lot in the past, decade, let's say. It's indeed an ecosystem. I mean, you can find support everywhere, you can find financing. There isn't, it's not so hard to start a business. I mean, it takes 3 days. Maybe it's a bit harder than elsewhere. I don't know. Again, I don't have the data. But I don't think that people, entrepreneurs are leaving the country because it's easier to start up a business in France. I know entrepreneurs who left, but they left with a family to live in another country, but they still do business here, if you see what I mean. I mean, it's pretty different. And again, it's one thing to do business in Romania, and it's another thing to do business in France or Germany. Yes, there are bigger markets than ours, it's true, or in the States. It's size matters, size of the market, but here the opportunities are so much bigger than there. I mean, it's more difficult. It's a red ocean, if you see what I mean there. And it's still blue here, a lot of blue here. So you can be more innovative. The people you hire, I mean, we are more creative than others, okay? We have this in our DNA to be creative, yeah? In Romanian, we say, let us book up. Yeah? In English, it's we manage, in any occasion. So afterwards, yes, it's difficult. It's more difficult after you start a business. It's more difficult indeed, because we need simplification. It's true, we need a lot of simplification. We need something that we don't have and we don't do as a country enough, okay? Or the government doesn't do enough, okay? I will put this on government's shoulders this time. We don't have, we live in a digital world. We need to uplift our digital skills, and we don't do enough. We pretend to do, but we don't, okay? We have wagons of money from EU for upskilling in digital skills, but we don't do it properly. We just take the money, but we, I'm sorry to say, I'm afraid we pretend to do things. We are in DESI, you know, the index of digital skills. I don't know exactly I have to think what it stands for. Digital economy and society index. Yeah. We are on the last place in Europe by far. I mean, it's us, low, and then the next one is, okay? And this is not only on the government, but it matters because we pour money in doing cloud. By the way, we're doing governmental cloud, but it is done by the state instead of getting private knowledge. Privates have loads of know-how on cloud, yeah? But cloud is not only, it doesn't matter. Anyways, so we don't do what is needed to be done to do the upskilling. And it's important because simplification comes from that. First of all, from digitalization. But, people in administration don't have digital skills, teachers don't have digital skills, small businesses don't have digital skills. Half of Romania in countryside or in small urban, they don't have digital skills apart from TikTok and I don't know what. I mean, and we need to lift that up properly. I mean, and that's hard work. That's grassroots work, and it's very difficult. Very difficult. I will give you one example of programs, European programs. I don't know exactly the codes or all that, but I know this as a fact that public libraries are called to do digital upskilling for people. Public libraries. I mean, public libraries. But if there are no public libraries left, or they are empty. So there you are. We need to put our efforts more in this regard, and we'll do better. Digitalization is the key word. I'm pretty sure.
And I was actually going to come back to Simina and Kina at the end there to say, we've looked a bit at why people leave, what we can do to stop them leaving and for them to come back, but I was wondering if we could look a bit at the life people live within the diaspora as well. So Sabina, from your role as MP for diaspora and Kina as coordinator for Erasmus, I'm sure you hear a lot of testimony from people who leave either permanently or temporarily. What would you identify as the key challenges they're facing there? So what are they facing in their kind of recipient countries where A, that could be a reason for them to come back, or B, if they would like to stay, maybe Romania can help through its embassies, consulates, and programs locally to improve their lives?
So I'm thinking because there's millions of people who live abroad and we're really different, by the way. So for some people, for like seasonal workers, there's a case of language barrier. So for them, if they don't speak German in Germany, they'll never have German friends, and they don't have it. So the number one problem for them, it's always the language barrier. That's how they get fooled when they sign a contract and they don't have a place to stay, because in the contract says clearly in German that you will not have a place to live. So that's just one example. When it comes to the other side of diaspora, for the people who go to study there or to work there, sometimes there's a cultural barrier because you're not used to the way people behave. Sometimes Romanians can be a bit more extroverted, let's say, or very direct people. Whereas other nations, they're really diplomatic and they might misinterpret how you put things first. So that's a cultural barrier. When it comes to access to opportunities, I was just thinking about what Laura said earlier. So I would say that the competition is bigger abroad. So abroad, if we speak several languages, we have studied there or like have some experience in our CV, we're not that special. So I wasn't special at all in Luxembourg, where I spoke 5 languages, for example. Everyone speaks 5 languages in Luxembourg. Whereas in the UK, I was a bit more special because the Brits don't speak other languages, so that was easier. So you need to take into account where the place you live, what makes you stand out in the crowd. So I think in Romania, if you come from abroad, okay, you might seem a bit arrogant. Okay, there might be people who say, oh, you've come up with too many things that you want to be given. You're very pretentious because you've come from abroad and you think you're superior than us. Yeah, we've had that. I've had that as well. But if you pass that, you'll see there's still many opportunities in Romania for you coming from abroad because there's something you bring new in here. The way you can negotiate things, the way you see things work abroad, so including with the digital services on how you just click in an app in the UK or in Luxembourg, and then in Romania you still have to go, with the physical papers. Of course, yeah, we are improving that. I personally work on the e-identity cards legislation now in the Parliament, so we're getting there nice and slowly thanks to the European Union directives and rules. But still, there's a lot of knowledge to be taken from abroad in Romania, and that's why I always encourage the youth when they want to come back home that there is room for them. Even though, as I said, there might be the mentality that, go back from where you came from because we're fine in here. No, we're not. We need everyone's help. So that's why I've always encouraged, especially for the youth who've studied abroad and who've already had some experience abroad, because there is a lot of potential in here. And when it comes to the corporate world, I think in here alone I can give you more details, but yes, there is a lot of opportunities in different corporations like the Big Four and so forth. Now, to answer back on the question, the problems that people face abroad are really different. So Romanians in the US, for example, they have a lot of different issues than Romanians who live in Italy. So for me as an MP for diaspora, it was very hard to enact legislation in a way that has a greater impact on everyone. So I didn't want to do stuff that would only have impact on Romanians who live in Italy. I wanted everyone who lives abroad to feel that the Romanian state is close to them, even though I was in opposition and I'm coming from a very new political party. I still try to do as much as lobbying possible in the parliament and the government to let them know that we still need these people. And I think the problem, as you said, is what do the embassies and the consulates do. So I'm going to tell you some internal info in here. The Ministry of External Affairs has a very low budget in comparison with other ministries. Never has this ministry been put on the first place when it comes to the way we interact with Romanians living abroad, the reputation Romania has abroad in what concerns the way we deal with the big powers, so that the US, England, France, Germany, and so forth. So when you cut the money every year, because I was for 2 years in the budget committee, and every single year they would cut the budget for the external affairs, and you can tell that in the way that Romania is presenting itself abroad. So that also affects the consulates and the embassies, but there's a very few number of resources in there, from the human resources spectrum, but also the fact that we don't have digitalized services. And then the Romanians, they would be really angry with the Romanian state because they would have to travel hours to go to the consulate. They can't have their civic or administrative acts or documents, I don't know, via post, for example, or online, so they would need to travel to the consulate. So there's this anger towards the Romanian state because of it. So it's a lack of resources, human resources, financial resources, but mostly it's digital services. And this is where we've been moving really, really slow, not just in the parliament, but mostly in the government, because the government does everything. So this is where I think we could improve the relationship that we have with the Romanians who live abroad by improving the Romanian services, the public administration services.
From the information we gathered from our outgoing students, at least a few, just as I quickly remember, the cultural shock and also overcoming language barriers. Still, the language is not such a big problem because our students are doing really, really well in terms of languages, and we try to cover that from the selection process. So if we have, I don't know, universities in Spain saying that the programs will be taught in English, we are making sure that our students will speak Spanish, because this would be a problem, of course, and if they are studying in France, they should know French. The financial challenges hit hard when they get there. So although the program has an increased budget for the next period till 2027, still our students need increased grants, and the university can jump in and co-finance their mobility grants. Starting next year, for example, starting with 2024, the European Commission also financed the cost for travel. They didn't do that before, so they know that it is important, and the Erasmus Student Network made sure that these issues were heard at the European Commission level. Another challenge would be learning styles and academic expectations. You learn in a way here, and when you get there, although we try to give them all the necessary information, the situation on the ground can be really different. Limited social connections, making authentic connections with other colleagues can be a difficult task. Adapting to a new lifestyle. I heard a lot of successful story from our students saying that they learn to cook, they learn to manage their finances in Erasmus, and they came back, more mature in that sense. Finding a good accommodation to live in is, I don't know, maybe the second main challenge after the financial ones. And sometimes feeling homesick. We try to help them in that sense. Although because we are, keep in touch with them constantly, we have students involved in this process, former Erasmus students that are trying to keep them close also to the university. But still, Erasmus, in my opinion, is a success story for all of them, for sure.
Thank you. Maybe I would bring a bit the discussion a bit higher level, because we have the perspective over 27 member states with our instruments. So what I notice as a challenge or a difficulty is a certain disconnection, I would call it, between the education systems and the transition to the labor market. Because what we can see also from the request that we are receiving with our technical support instrument is the fact that either there is no necessarily an interest to pursue a higher education at the extent which would be needed for the economic growth and for the country or region to remain competitive, or there is an interest for higher education, but then the access to higher education is maybe not reaching to all the ones that could have the potential but do not have the means for it. And also then the type of higher education that we offer needs to be very well matching with the labor market needs. And this is something that we have noticed in many member states, that there is this kind of disconnection between, okay, let's plan the number of graduates that we intend to have in a certain sector, so as then to serve the economy in a meaningful way. And this is the type of reflection that not all governments have. Moreover, we can also translate the same disconnection with the vocational education and training schools, because it's not only about higher education, but it's also about the type of professions which are most in need in the market. And actually, if we look at the figures of the European Labour Authority, for example, we see that the professions which are most in the need, okay, you have civil engineers, you can also have ICT specialists, which are missing, which is a kind of paradox because we are exporting them in the States, in Silicon Valley. But globally, if you look at the Europe landscape, we have basic professions which are not well served. So you don't have plumbers, you don't have electricians, carpenters, this type of profession. So there is really a need, I think, to think a bit more strategically when we do our offer and when we think about the curricula that we are offering, so as to be able to prepare these young people for the transition into the labor market. I think that this is one of the key elements, and what we could do is really to think about skill forecasting systems. You know, how to help the countries, because this is done at country level. Obviously, there is a reflection also at the business level, but it's a strategy that needs to be put forward by the country. And this type of reflection, we find it very useful, and we would really kind of encourage the decision maker to sit at the same table, the ministries of education, with the ministries of labor, with maybe public employment services, with the universities, and to think together how we can make it, the best, matching the best, in a best way, the offer and the demand in the respective country.
Thank you. And I think as a final question for the panel, just as we reach our time limit, and this is obviously open to everyone, so feel free to jump in. I think you're obviously all working in areas which quite closely touch the public sphere, so obviously politics, universities, European institutions, lobbying, public affairs. What do you think we can do collectively, including the people here, the people online, but also as a state, to encourage more people from outside Romania who left to come back and invest in public service, whatever that is, right? Because public service could be politics.